Hey everybody, and welcome to the Family Fudge. I'm Jennifer, and today I'm spending the day in my kitchen getting prepared for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Come along with me as I make breakfast for Christmas morning, 2 Christmas side dishes, our favorite freezable Christmas cookies, and then I'm also making a very colorful treat that I only make at Christmas time, and it's called Cathedral window cookies. Now I hope this video gives you some different ideas on things that you can make ahead of time for Christmas. That way you're spending more time with your family and less time in the kitchen. Now you guys, this year for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, we're going to be celebrating with just our family at our house. It's pretty much up to me to make everything, so that's why I definitely want to make some things ahead of time so I can just enjoy the day. So I'm going to start by making a Christmas breakfast casserole. And so as you can see in a large skillet, I've just started to brown up my breakfast sausage. This is 1 pound of just regular mild breakfast sausage. Now of course you could use turkey, that's what I prefer, but the rest of my family likes pork sausage. You also could substitute this with spicy sausage if you like things a little bit spicy. So I'm just breaking this up as it cooks, and I am going to make sure to drain off all of the grease. Once the sausage is cooked, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the bottom of my 9 by 13 baking pan. Now you definitely could use an aluminum pan for this, but since this is Christmas morning, I'm going to go ahead and put it in my glass dish. And you guys, since I am going to be freezing this, I made sure that the dish that I'm using is freezer safe. Next, I'm going to be adding some crumbled up pieces of bacon. So that's right, we're adding bacon and sausage into this breakfast casserole. I usually buy the pre-cooked bacon, so all I have to do is chop this up and throw it in. But of course, if you're using regular bacon, you're going to want to cook that up first. Or if you wanted to just use sausage, you could totally do that too. Next comes the cheese, and you're going to want to add at least 2 cups of shredded cheese here. And I'm going to be using sharp cheddar cheese, but you also could use pepper jack cheese or a combination of the two. That would be delicious. Now in a separate bowl, I'm going to go ahead and mix together my milk, my eggs, my salt and pepper, and my onion powder. And once that is all combined, I can go ahead and pour it over my casserole. Next, I'm going to add the tater tots. And you guys, if you can't find tater tots, you can definitely substitute that out for some shredded hash browns. And you guys, I would love to know in the comments down below, if you make a tater tot casserole, do you like to line up your tater tots perfectly, or do you kind of just dump them in everywhere? Okay guys, so at this point you have several options. If I was making this the day before Christmas, I would go ahead and just wrap it up and stick it in the fridge. Then I would pull it out in the morning and get it in the oven. But since we are several days before Christmas, and this is going in the freezer, I'm going to wrap this up in foil and then add it to my freezer. Then on Christmas morning, I'll go ahead and remove it from my freezer about 20 minutes before I want to start baking it. And from partially frozen, it will probably take about 45 minutes to an hour at 350 degrees. And you guys, I'm sorry I can't show you the final product here because I am actually making this for Christmas morning, so I'm not going to be baking it up right now. Okay guys, next up I'm making a Rudolph Christmas cheese ball. And you guys, this is a perfect appetizer to make ahead of time because you can make this up to 3 days in advance and refrigerate it. I wouldn't put this in the freezer, however. Now I will go ahead and add a link to the exact recipe that I'm using in the description box below. But basically I'm going to start by adding 2 blocks of cream cheese to my mixer. And this part is really important, that this cream cheese is room temperature. Then you guys, I'm also going to be adding about 3.5 cups of sharp cheddar cheese, also at room temperature. And I really recommend that you grate your own cheese for this instead of just using the pre-shredded kind. I think this cheese ball will stick together a lot better if you use freshly grated cheese. And then finally, to my mixer, I'm also going to be adding in a packet of ranch dressing mix. Now you guys, for this I'm using my Bosch mixer, but you could also use just a hand mixer. And if you don't have either of those, you can definitely mix this by hand. So now that I have this all mixed up, I need to get out the plastic wrap, and I'm going to be using several sheets here. So I'm just transferring all of my cheese mixture onto the plastic wrap, and then I'm going to use the plastic wrap to form this mixture into a ball. Now you guys, at this point, that is all I'm going to do, and that's because the last few steps have to be done right before serving. To make this cheese ball look like a reindeer, all you have to do is roll the ball in a little bit of crushed pecans. Then you're going to add 2 black olives into the cheese ball to look like Rudolph's eyes, a cherry tomato in the center to look like Rudolph's nose, and then you want to add 2 big pretzels on top to look like his antlers. And then I'm going to be serving this with a bunch of different kinds of crackers. Okay guys, next up I'm going to be making a cheesy corn casserole, which is one of my favorite holiday side dishes, and it is super easy to make. I'm just going to take a big old mixing bowl, and in here I'm going to be adding 1 can of regular corn, followed by 1 can of cream style corn. Next, I'm adding 1 box of Jiffy corn muffin mix. If you don't have this, you could just add 1 cup of any kind of cornbread mix. Next, I'm adding in 1 cup of sour cream and half a stick of melted butter. Now I'm going to mix this all together, and I'm going to pour it into a 9x13 pan that I've already sprayed with a little bit of nonstick spray. Now you guys, with this make ahead casserole, I am going to go ahead and bake it first. I do not want to freeze it as is. I don't think that would turn out very well. So I'm going to bake this for about 45 minutes or until golden brown. And then at that point, I'm going to take it out, sprinkle a little bit of shredded cheese on top. Now you guys, if you wanted to eat this right away, I would stick it back in the oven for 10 more minutes until that cheese is nice and melted. But because I want to freeze this, I'm going to let it completely cool down. Then I'm going to wrap it in aluminum foil and get it into my freezer. Now you guys, this can stay in your freezer for weeks, but on Christmas Day, I'm going to pull this out of my freezer and just set it on the counter for about 20 minutes before popping it into the oven until heated through. And from frozen, that will probably take at least 30 minutes at 350 degrees. Now moving on to the green bean casserole. Now I know some people really like this dish and some people really don't. I happen to be in the camp that really likes it, and I like it in all its varieties. So as you can see to my bowl, I started by adding 1 can of the condensed soup. Definitely make your own if you want to go that route. And then to that I added 3/4 of a cup of milk. Next comes my secret ingredient, which is 1 cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese. And you guys, I really think it's this ingredient that makes it taste better to my kids, but if you don't want to add it, you can definitely leave it out. Now I do like to season this up a little bit more by adding 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Now I'm just going to mix this all together. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take my baking pan, spray it with a little bit of nonstick spray, and then I'm going to start dumping in my green beans. And you guys, this is 3 cans of green beans that I have drained, and I really like to use the French style green beans in this recipe instead of the regular one, so that's what I'm going with. Next, I'm going to pour the soup mixture on top, and then comes the fried onions. Now this is a 6-ounce container, and I'm going to be sprinkling about 1/3 of this container into this mixture at this time, but I'm going to be saving the rest for when I'm ready to cook this. I'm not going to be adding all of this right now, otherwise it's going to end up like a big soggy mess. So now I've mixed this all together directly in the baking pan, and at this point I am done. If you wanted to bake this right away, you could just add the rest of the onions on top and pop it in the oven. But since I want to freeze this, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it in aluminum foil. Again, I'm using a freezer safe pan. You could also use an aluminum pan, and you really could keep this casserole in your freezer for several weeks just as it is. But what I plan to do is on Christmas Day, I'm going to take this out of the freezer about an hour before I want to cook it. I'm going to let it come to room temperature, then top it with the rest of the crispy fried onions and bake it like that. Again, I will have this full recipe linked for you in the description box below if you want to make it yourself. Next up, I'm making one of our favorite freezable Christmas cookies. These are pistachio pudding mix cookies. Now you guys, I love pistachios, especially around the holidays. And these cookies are great because you can make up the dough ahead of time and only bake however many you need. And you guys, this recipe makes about 3.5 dozen cookies, so you're gonna have plenty to share and eat throughout the holiday season. So to my mixer, I'm gonna start by combining the butter, the sugar, and the brown sugar. And I'm going to beat this on high until the mixture is light and fluffy. That usually takes about 3 minutes. Next, I'm gonna be adding in 2 eggs, and I do wanna do that just one at a time. Next, I'm adding in my vanilla extract, and I'm going to keep mixing this for a couple more minutes until it's looking nice and fluffy. Now at this point, I am ready to add my salt, my baking soda, and this might sound a little bit weird, but I'm also adding a box of instant pistachio pudding mix. And this is just a small box. This pistachio pudding is going to give our cookies some awesome flavor, but it's also going to make sure that our cookies stay nice and soft. And to make these look even more like a Christmas cookie, I am going to add a little bit of green food coloring, but of course that part is optional. You don't have to add it in if you don't want to. Now once that is all mixed together, it's time to add the flour, and I'm going to be using about 4 to 4.5 cups. It really just depends on how it's looking, and I'm just adding 1 cup at a time. You really want to make sure not to over mix. Now at this point, I'm going to add my chopped pistachios. This is about 1 cup, and I'm also adding 1.5 cups of white chocolate chips. And I'm just going to pulse this around a couple of times until combined. Now with these cookies, I am going to bake some right now. On my lined baking sheet, and I'm going to bake these at 350 for 10 to 12 minutes. And it's really important not to over bake these cookies. The bottom and the edges of the cookies should be just barely golden brown, and that's how you know that they're done. But I'm also going to prepare some for the freezer. So for the ones I'm baking right now, I'm just going to scoop and drop some of this cookie dough on my baking sheet, but I'm going to make sure that they're not touching. Then I'm going to stick this entire tray in my freezer for about 4 hours or overnight. And once the cookie balls are frozen, I can add them to my Ziploc bag. Then of course, whenever I want to bake up some cookies, I can just pull out however many cookie dough balls I need and bake them up, just like that. And now you guys, I've saved maybe the best for last. These are called Cathedral window cookies. And like I said, they're kind of more like a fudge than a cookie, but they are really easy to make. They are super colorful, and they freeze really well. In fact, you kind of have to freeze them. Oh, and I think the reason they're called Cathedral window cookies is because of all of the colorful marshmallows. When you slice them, they kind of look like the stained glass window of a cathedral. To get started, I'm going to be melting 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips with half a cup of butter. Now you can do this in the microwave, or you can do it in a double boiler like I'm doing it here. If you do it in the microwave, you want to make sure to just put it in there for 30 seconds at a time, mixing between each time. And if you're doing it with a double boiler, make sure not to get any water in the chocolate. Otherwise, your chocolate might seize up and it won't be any good. Now I'm going to keep my eye on this, and I'm going to keep stirring it until it's all the way melted, and then it's time for me to temper my egg. Now I just have 1 egg here that I beat lightly, and I'm actually going to take some of this melted chocolate and butter mixture, and I'm going to spoon it directly into my beaten egg, and I'm going to mix that around. This is so that I can heat up the egg without scrambling it. Now I can go ahead and pour this back into my bowl and mix that all together. Now at this point, I'm ready to add in 1 cup of powdered sugar and about half a cup of nuts. You can use any kind that you prefer, but I'm adding pecans because that's what I have on hand. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the heat, and I'm going to let it cool down for about 15 minutes or so because I don't want this to be so hot that it melts my marshmallows. Okay, so now that this is cooled down enough, I can pour it over my marshmallows, mix that all together, and now I'm going to shape this into a log. I'm using some plastic wrap here so it doesn't make a big mess. And once I have it in a log shape, I'm going to add coconut to another piece of plastic wrap. That way I can easily roll this little log in the coconut. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap this really well in plastic and get it into my freezer for at least 4 hours, but it's best if you can wait until the next day to cut into this. What I like to do is just slice off a few pieces at a time, and whatever's left over I keep in the freezer. Now you guys, I would love to know in the comments down below if you plan on making any Christmas recipes ahead of time this year. Let me know what recipes you're making because I'm always looking for new ones to try. I want to thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video.